What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the channel. And folks, we have breaking news to get into that dropped over the past hour and a half at the time of recording this, that yes, the Mets have officially sent down both Brett Baty and Mark Vientos to AAA. And I have a lot to say about this, and I don't care how late this video is Eastern time when it initially comes out. I mean, I'm pushing my Saturday night plans aside for a little bit to share my raw reaction here, because I told you guys on the channel throughout spring that I had the full expectation that Brett Baty would crack this roster at absolute minimum, and if he didn't, then I would give everyone an earful. So that's exactly what I'm doing. Now, granted, of course, do I think that Baty and Vientos are going to be down in AAA all year? No, of course not. And there is a possibility that we could see one of, if not both of them, on the roster in, say, a month or two. I mean, or maybe later or sooner. We're really not too sure. But what I am sure of is that the Mets really sent down two of their best hitters this spring. Now, I know that spring training might not mean much to you, but when you're competing for roster spots, and Brett Baty took full advantage of Eduardo Escobar being gone in the WBC, hit over 300, hit a roughly 900 OPS, actually performed a competent glove at third base when Eduardo Escobar defensively is one of the worst defensive third basemen in all baseball. I'm just absolutely blown away by this decision, how the Mets still found it would be best to send Baty to start the year in the minors. Now, if this is a situation where even if Baty cracked the roster, that he was going to be getting limited reps because they still view Eddie as that number one guy, then okay, I understand that more. And for Vientos, I understood that he would be more so of that part-time guy if he even made the team, because he's not an everyday player. He's not playing at third at all for the Mets more than likely. He's not playing at first, obviously, so he would be getting DH reps mainly against southpaws and having Vogie against righties. So I understand for Vientos' sake more, wanting him to get everyday reps still in the minors. Do I think that Vientos is a big upgrade? Not big upgrade, but better than Darren Ruff, what he gives you right now? Absolutely, and we're waiting to find out if Ruff is even going to make this roster. He might not, so we'll wait on that front. If he does, I'm going to have more to share and more to say on that front. But raw reactions here is that Brett Baty, who was raved about by Eric Chavez, the Mets now hitting coach, only, a six-time Gold Glove, was a phenomenal third baseman during his heyday with the Oakland A's. He went out and raved about him and said both offensively and defensively over the past week and a half on record that he believes that Baty is beyond MLB caliber. So, okay, if we have that awareness and we know that Eddie defensively is not really any better than Baty, I mean, anyone that thinks that Baty is this worst thing imaginable defensively is not paying attention to what Eduardo Escobar is. I love Eddie, great personality. Do I think he deserves to be the starting third baseman over Baty right now, in which Baty absolutely was phenomenal all spring? No, I don't. Baty deserves to be in this spot. And again, if it's one of those things where it's for a short period of time, then I can live with it more. But with this uncertainty and not knowing exactly how long both these guys are going to be down, I just don't understand it. You're in a win now stage, right? And you want to worry about Baty's development according to Bleav, where he wants to check off a little bit more boxes on, just getting to some fine-tune some things, if you will. Okay, that's all good and all, but what hasn't he proven at the minor league level? I know he was in AAA for only, a couple weeks. It wasn't long. He went from AA to AAA for a short time, then the bigs, and struggled because he was rushed up. But he proved himself to another level this spring. And Mark Vientos, he was only the Mets' best hitter with driving in runs this spring, had 11 RBIs, leading the Mets to this point, had around 275, 280 average with a under 800 OPS. Again, I don't have as high expectations for Vientos as an overall player as I do Baty, but the point still stands. These are two guys that can impact your club right away. So aside from them having limited reps at the MLB level, which is exactly why that they were sent down, I still disagree with this. Eduardo Escobar right now would be best fit, in my opinion, as a DH type, a platoon, a utility guy, where you can mix him up, where you're going to play him. You're going to have Baty starting at third base. Then the days that Baty isn't starting, you have Eddie there. Then you can have Eddie at DH. I mean, splitting time with Vogelback. You get creative. But at the end of the day, the Mets making the acquisitions that they have, and Eddie being pretty much not a good player at all up until the final month of the season last year, let's be realistic, was fantastic in September and heading into the wild card round, but he didn't hit a lick for the most part for the majority of the season prior to that. That's really the only thing we're basing this off of. It's not based on his defensive production, because if you look up his defensive defensive numbers, they aren't good, and they aren't going to get any better more than likely. And now you have Darren Ruff, which is such a lopsided trade as is, looking back in hindsight. So the Mets have to, save some face here and try to give Ruff a little bit more of an opportunity, like Robinson Cano last year, where they had to have him at least the first 20 games before cutting him. Difference is that Ruff isn't on a $20+ million deal for like another year or two. So if Steve Cohen is willing to cut Cano, I'd imagine that he'll have that same willingness with Ruff even sooner if Ruff struggles to start the year. Again, with the assumption that he's on this roster as a DH, facing mainly lefties, and with Vogie facing righties. I know I'm all over the place right now, but I'm just beyond bothered by this decision for the Mets. I know they view highly of Baty. Billy Epler today said it himself that he views Baty as not even an average MLB player, but an above average MLB player. I mean, the Mets really know what they have in Brett Baty, which is great. But if you know what you have for a guy who's already 23, it's not like he's 21 being rushed up like Francisco Alvarez, in which that was completely justified to have him in the minors. Baty is someone who has exemplified all the tools that you would want, both on the offensive side of the ball and defensively. He showed enough in spring to warrant. Now, if the Mets had a Gold Glove caliber third baseman right now, say hypothetically a Matt Chapman, right, where, at bat, big swing and miss, has popped though, defensively is an absolute stud, then it's justified. Then you're like, okay, give Baty reps in the corner and left. I get that, but this isn't the situation here. It's Eduardo Escobar, who is not good defensively and has so much holes in his swing offensively. What are we doing here? If you want to put out your best roster to start the year, you do not start Eduardo Escobar at third base consistently over Brett Baty. I'm sorry. I'm going to stand on that hill until proven otherwise. Eddie, I hope you prove me wrong. I love you and I want you to prove me wrong, but Baty and Vientos are guys that are certainly going to help impact the Mets this year, and I know you want to give them reps in the minors. It helps their trade value too, especially with Vientos. Baty ain't going anywhere. We know that. But the big thing to me is this Mets offense is literally no different than last year. Okay, so the only way that you can really expect this offense to get more consistency is allowing these young guys to actually get a leash and get an opportunity from the jump. Games in April mean just as much as they do in September. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, folks. It's not like there's a difference because you're starting the year and you're just getting the rhythm of the season. No, these games mean just as much. So because of that, put your best players out there. And at minimum, Brett Baty is exactly that, in my humble opinion. And I'm going to continue to stand by that, because if the Mets decide not to do anything at the trade deadline, right? I Bleav they will. I think they'll add some more offense at the trade deadline, more than likely. But let's say they just base it on the internal options. Potentially not calling up a Baty and or Vientos until the second half of the season could have negative ramifications. You don't know what is going to happen there by not having them start the season with the club. Again, I'd imagine that they're going to do well for the most part, but these are still unknowns. So what we do know is that this is the same roster as last year, which was a top 5 offense, but absolutely fell flat on its face, would have mattered most. So now you're telling me you're going to keep that same offense out there to start the year when you could at minimum see what you have from the jump in Baty and give him a leash for the first couple months, right? Vientos, same thing applies, even though it's in more of a limited role. I have a lot more that I could say about this and a lot more that I can ramble on. I understand what the Mets thought process is here. I really do. And trust me, I don't want these guys up if they're going to get little to no reps to begin with. You want to give them playing time. But with that being said, the entire coaching staff wasn't even necessarily on par with this decision. This is Epler and Buck, right? Chavez, who's the Mets hitting coach, who's actually trying to be a manager in the near future, he spoke so glowingly of Baty, as did everyone else that was a former player in Mets camp, from David Wright, from, Hojo, who actually spoke today because he was hanging out with Mets fans for Amazing Day, was raving about him too. I mean, every former Met, current player that I've heard discuss Brett Baty has spoken nothing of glowing things of him. They've all viewed him unbelievably high. So just further reasoning as to why I'm taken back by this decision. I think this is the wrong decision. I think this is something where you look at, why aren't the Mets just playing their guys when they're ready? We see the Braves do it. We see other teams do it, okay? And the Braves didn't even bring up Harris until they dealt with their injuries with Adam Duvall and others in the outfield, which was more justified. Right now, Baty is a better player than Eduardo Escobar and is certainly going to have a higher ceiling. You might call me crazy, but I'm going to stand on that hill for now. That's enough of me rambling. That was 9 minutes into this video. I just had to share my raw reactions to this. I really hope the Mets prove me wrong, because I love this team and I love them to death. I love Buck. I'm a fan of Epler. I just am not happy with this decision right now. So I really hope that Eddie says, you know what, I'm going to go out, ball out, kick my teeth in, Eddie. By all means, I love you to death, okay? But what I want most is the best team available out there right now, and I don't think that current lineup construction without Baty is that. So Mets fans, let me know your thoughts down below. How do you feel about this? Are you in favor of the Mets decision? Or are you against it? Whatever it are, make sure to drop it down below. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all to death, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out, guys.